Ladies and gentlemen, in life, there will always be those who seek control, not through leadership or inspiration, but through manipulation. These people do not want equals, they want puppets. They flatter to disarm, guilt trip to control, and gaslight to confuse. But when manipulation fails, when you stand your ground, think for yourself, and refuse to be swayed, they often turn to something darker. Dirty tricks. At the heart of manipulation lies an intent that's often disguised control. While healthy relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on mutual respect, trust, and open communication, manipulators operate very differently. They are not interested in connecting with you on an authentic level. They do not value your independence of thought, your emotional boundaries, or your individuality. Instead, they are primarily focused on gaining leverage, finding the strings they can pull to get what they want from you. Their aim is not harmony, but dominance, and they often mask this with charm, flattery, or even vulnerability. In the beginning, a manipulator may seem attentive, generous, or even self-deprecating, but these are not genuine traits. They are tactics. These behaviors are calculated to lower your defenses and create a sense of obligation, guilt, or dependency. It's a transactional relationship in disguise where one party believes they are forming a bond and the other is quietly constructing a cage. Control can show up in subtle forms, asking loaded questions that put you on the defensive, giving backhanded compliments to shake your confidence, or shifting blame so subtly that you start questioning your reality. These are not communication errors. They are intentional strategies meant to make you more pliable and less likely to challenge or leave. The deeper tragedy is that the manipulator often doesn't see people as people. They see roles. They view others as tools to be used, threats to be neutralized, or pawns to be moved. This dehumanizing perspective allows them to justify their behavior while painting themselves as the victim when they're called out. When someone is truly seeking connection, they respect boundaries, honor your feelings, and welcome your autonomy. But when someone seeks control, those same things become inconvenient obstacles. So when someone bristles at your independence, invalidates your feelings, or gets angry when you set a boundary, it's a red flag, not of love, concern, or closeness, but of manipulation. Real connection doesn't require control. In fact, it cannot survive in its presence. Manipulators thrive in environments where they can remain undetected, where their tactics go unnoticed, and where their targets are compliant. The moment you begin to assert yourself, whether through questioning their motives, setting clear boundaries, or simply refusing to play along, you disrupt the dynamic they carefully constructed. And for the manipulator, that disruption isn't just inconvenient, it's threatening. Why? Because manipulators equate control with safety. For them, having power over others provides a false sense of stability and superiority. When you stop responding the way they expect, when you no longer feel guilty for saying no, when you stop over-explaining yourself, or when their guilt trips fall flat, you are no longer a predictable player in their game. And unpredictability terrifies them. Refusing to be manipulated isn't just an act of self-respect, it's a form of resistance. It signals that you see through the smoke and mirrors, that you're no longer willing to engage in one-sided dynamics, and most importantly, it shows that their influence over you is slipping. This threatens more than just their ego, it threatens their illusion of control. Manipulators often build their identity on the ability to influence or dominate others. Your independence exposes a weakness in their strategy and forces them to confront the reality that their power is conditional. It only works if you participate. When you stop participating, their illusion collapses. And because manipulators rarely have healthy coping mechanisms or emotional maturity, they don't respond to this challenge with introspection or accountability. Instead, they often react with hostility, victim playing, or escalation. They may accuse you of being cold, disloyal, selfish, or even abusive, not because you are, but because they need to regain control of the narrative. Ultimately, your refusal to be manipulated reveals who is truly in control, not of them, but of you. And for someone who depends on controlling others to feel secure, that reality is not just uncomfortable, it's intolerable. When a manipulator realizes their usual tactics no longer work, when guilt trips fall flat, emotional blackmail doesn't move you, or their flattery no longer distracts you, they don't typically walk away or admit defeat. Instead, they escalate. The failure to manipulate is not, in their eyes, a sign to reflect or communicate more honestly. Rather, it's perceived as a personal affront, a threat to the carefully curated persona they've built and the control they believe they're entitled to. At this point, manipulation gives way to something darker, the use of underhanded, often malicious tactics designed to undermine, discredit, or destabilize you. These tactics may be subtle or overt, but their purpose is always the same: to regain dominance and punish you for breaking free from their influence. One of the most common forms of escalation is character assassination. If they can't control your perception directly, they may try to influence how others see you. This can involve spreading rumors, twisting your words, or portraying themselves as the victim in a false narrative where you're the aggressor. The goal isn't just to hurt your reputation, it's to isolate you, to make you question your own judgment, and to pressure you back into submission through social shame or exclusion. Another escalation tactic is emotional sabotage. This can include stonewalling, withdrawing affection, or suddenly turning cold and distant in an effort to trigger fear of abandonment. They may deliberately trigger your insecurities or bring up personal information you once shared in confidence, weaponizing your vulnerability against you. This is not only manipulative, it's deeply cruel, and it's done with intention. In more toxic environments, whether at work, in families, or romantic relationships, the escalation may even include gaslighting, where they try to distort your perception of events to the point that you begin doubting your memory, your feelings, even your sanity. It's a tactic designed not just to control, but to confuse and disable your resistance entirely. These underhanded moves aren't random, they're strategic. They are deployed when the manipulator senses they're losing grip and wants to provoke a reaction that justifies their narrative or reestablishes control. And they do it all while maintaining a facade of innocence or victimhood, so if you defend yourself too strongly, you appear unstable or overly emotional. The irony is that the more desperate they become, the more obvious their tactics tend to be. But to those unaware of what's happening, their actions can seem like legitimate grievances or emotional breakdowns. That's what makes these dirty tricks so dangerous. They're not just attacks on your actions, but on your credibility and reality. So when manipulation fails, don't expect a graceful exit. Expect escalation, not because you've done something wrong, but because you've done something right. You've reclaimed your agency and they can't stand it. When manipulators lose control over someone, they often resort to a playbook filled with dirty tricks. These tactics are not just emotional outbursts or reactions, they are calculated moves designed to restore the balance of power in their favor by any means necessary. Manipulators cannot handle being exposed or ignored, so they shift strategies to protect their ego and punish the person who no longer submits to their control. One of the most common dirty tricks is lying. These lies can be subtle, like quiet distortions of truth or carefully crafted half-truths meant to sow doubt in others about your intentions or character, or they can be bold, direct fabrications meant to paint you as unstable, untrustworthy, or cruel. The manipulator may lie to mutual friends, coworkers, family members, or anyone who might be in a position to support or believe you. They use deception as a weapon not only to attack your reputation, but to make others question your integrity, even your sanity. Closely related to lies are smear campaigns. A manipulator will often seek to damage your credibility behind your back while maintaining a facade of innocence to your face. These campaigns are usually launched in private, quiet conversations that begin with lines like, "I probably shouldn't say this, but," or "I'm just really worried about them lately." Their goal is not open confrontation, it's character sabotage. They try to control how others see you when they can no longer control you directly. It's malicious, it's strategic, and it's often done under the mask of concern or care. Another powerful dirty trick manipulators use is playing the victim. Once their tactics are exposed or rejected, they may flip the script entirely and portray themselves as the one who's been wronged. This reversal is one of the most manipulative tricks in their arsenal because it appeals to empathy, something they know decent people are wired to offer. They may exaggerate, fabricate, or twist the truth to make it seem like you're the aggressor, the bully, or the unreasonable one. They'll cry, sulk, or retreat dramatically, often in public or around shared contacts, to elicit sympathy and cast you in the worst possible light. This tactic works frighteningly well in environments where appearances matter more than facts. In workplaces, families, or social circles that value harmony over truth, manipulators often thrive because their tricks are subtle enough to escape scrutiny. They know that people are uncomfortable with conflict, and they exploit that discomfort to isolate and discredit anyone who challenges them. What makes these dirty tricks particularly insidious is their plausible deniability. The manipulator can always say, "I never said that," or "That's not what I meant," or "You're taking it the wrong way." They build layers of ambiguity into their actions so they can always retreat if they're caught, leaving you to appear defensive or irrational for calling them out. Ultimately, these tricks are used not because the manipulator is strong, but because they are desperate. Lies, smears, and playing the victim are all designed to create confusion, guilt, or doubt, to wear you down and pressure you back into submission. But the truth is, these tricks don't reveal your character, they reveal theirs. Resisting manipulation is not just about saying no to someone else, it's about saying yes to yourself. It requires a level of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and inner stability that many people never fully develop. When someone cannot be manipulated, it means they have done the work to know who they are, what they value, and what they will or will not tolerate. That kind of clarity is threatening to manipulators because it's incorruptible. Manipulation feeds off uncertainty, it thrives in people-pleasing tendencies, low self-esteem, and emotional confusion. Manipulators count on you second-guessing yourself, on you prioritizing their comfort over your boundaries, and on your desire to avoid conflict. But when you have clarity, when you know your worth, your truth, and your limits, you become difficult, if not impossible, to control. This is not arrogance, it's self-possession. It means you don't need to explain or defend your boundaries excessively. You don't fall apart when someone disapproves of your choices. You don't feel compelled to rescue someone from the consequences of their own actions just because they're upset. That's strength. And this kind of strength is rare. It often comes from experience, sometimes painful ones. Many people who are immune to manipulation didn't start that way. They became that way after being lied to, used, gaslighted, or betrayed. Each time they were manipulated, they learned. They got sharper, They realize that kindness without boundaries becomes self-sacrifice, and empathy without discernment becomes a liability. Over time, they stopped handing out access to people who hadn't earned it. Clarity also brings with it a calm that manipulators can't stand. When you don't react to their provocations, when you refuse to engage in circular arguments, emotional baiting, or guilt tripping, it unnerves them. Your stillness becomes a mirror to their chaos. They may try harder at first, escalating their tactics to force a reaction, but when nothing works, their power dissolves. Not because you fought harder, but because you didn't fight at all. You simply saw through it and refused to play. The person who is immune to manipulation is not emotionless. They still feel deeply. They just don't allow feelings to dictate their decisions blindly. They take the time to reflect. They hold space for complexity. And perhaps most importantly, they trust themselves. That inner trust is what makes manipulation ineffective. So, when someone can no longer influence you through guilt, fear, flattery, or confusion, you're not being cold or difficult, you're being free. You've reclaimed control over your own mind and emotions, and no manipulator can compete with that kind of inner clarity. Integrity is one of the most powerful defenses you can have against manipulation and deception. It is the quiet, unwavering commitment to living by your principles, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, and especially when you're being tested by people who want to twist you into someone you're not. When manipulators can't use your doubts or emotions against you, they'll try to provoke you into betraying yourself. That's where integrity becomes your shield. Integrity doesn't just mean being honest. It means being whole. It means your actions, your words, and your values are aligned. Manipulators operate in the shadows, relying on confusion, deception, and inconsistency to gain the upper hand. But when you're grounded in integrity, there's very little for them to latch onto. You don't contradict yourself. You don't say one thing and do another. You're not easily baited into emotional reactions or petty games because you already know who you are and what you stand for. That consistency makes you difficult to manipulate. Why? Because manipulators thrive in chaos. They create drama, distort facts, and play on your insecurities in order to keep you off balance. But a person with integrity is not easily thrown. They don't feel the need to win every argument or prove themselves constantly. Their sense of self-worth isn't based on validation from others. It's based on internal alignment. That's intimidating to someone who only feels powerful when others feel weak. Maintaining your integrity also protects your reputation. Even when manipulators try to smear you or twist your words, people who know you and have observed your character over time will recognize the truth. Integrity builds a track record, one that speaks louder than rumors or slander. When your behavior consistently reflects your values, it becomes very difficult for anyone to convincingly paint you as dishonest, unstable, or cruel, no matter how hard they try. And perhaps most importantly, integrity protects your inner peace. Manipulators want you to question yourself. They want you to feel guilty, ashamed, or uncertain so they can steer you back into submission. But when you act from a place of integrity, even in the face of false accusations or provocation, you can rest easy. You don't have to lie awake wondering if you overstepped or betrayed yourself. You don't have to carry the emotional residue of manipulation because you didn't compromise your truth to fit someone else's agenda. Of course, standing firm in your integrity isn't always easy. It may cost you relationships, popularity, or short-term comfort. But what you gain is far more valuable: self-respect, stability, and protection from the toxic cycles that manipulators create. When you refuse to betray your values, no matter what tricks or pressure are applied, you become untouchable in the one way that truly matters. Your soul stays intact. When you finally draw the line with manipulators, when you stop excusing their behavior, stop bending over backwards to keep the peace, and stop sacrificing your own well-being just to avoid conflict, it can feel like a loss, and in some ways it is. You may lose a relationship, a friendship, or even a family connection. But what you lose in manipulation, you gain tenfold in truth, peace, and space for people who see and value the real you. Manipulators don't coexist well with authenticity. They demand versions of you that serve them. Versions that are agreeable, submissive, predictable, or overly accommodating. When you shed those versions and begin showing up as your honest self, clear, boundaried, and self-respecting, they often withdraw, retaliate, or disappear entirely. It's painful, especially if you once trusted or cared for them. But their departure is not a reflection of your failure. It's a sign that your growth no longer makes space for their control. Letting go of manipulators feels lonely at first because they often occupy so much emotional and psychological space. They create a dynamic where you're constantly reacting to their needs, moods, or passive-aggressive behaviors. Removing them can feel like silence, like emptiness. But in reality, it's the beginning of peace. That empty space isn't a void, it's an opening. It's where healthier connections can take root. Genuine people are out there. But they cannot thrive in a space dominated by toxicity. Healthy relationships require room for mutual respect, vulnerability, and honest communication. If your energy is being consumed by deflecting, manipulation, or managing someone else's emotional chaos, you simply won't have the capacity to build those deeper, more fulfilling connections. Losing the manipulator is often the first act of clearing the garden, pulling the weeds so something real can grow. And when those genuine people do show up, you'll notice something different. You won't feel anxious or drained after interacting with them. You won't feel like you're constantly on trial or that you have to earn their love through sacrifice. You'll feel safe, seen, and accepted without having to perform. You'll experience the quiet joy of being with someone who respects your boundaries without punishment, who listens without twisting your words, and who stays without strings attached. But to make room for them, you have to let go of those who needed you to shrink. You have to mourn the illusion of who you thought the manipulator was and embrace the truth of who they showed themselves to be. That loss is not the end. It's the clearing before the beginning. So while it may feel like you're walking away from something familiar, what you're really doing is walking towards something better. Better people, better energy, better alignment. And it all begins with your decision to no longer make space for anyone who only valued you when you were easy to control. When someone resorts to manipulation, lies, smearing, or playing the victim to get their way, it can leave a heavy emotional residue on the person being targeted. You may find yourself second-guessing everything, wondering if you provoked it, if you could have handled things differently, if you're somehow at fault for their behavior. That's part of their strategy, to project their dysfunction on you so they can avoid accountability and maintain control. But make no mistake, their dirty tricks are not a reflection of your value. They are a window into their weakness. People with true inner strength don't need manipulation to get their needs met. They don't have to lie, guilt, or twist others to feel important. It is those who feel powerless on the inside who most often reach for control on the outside. Dirty tricks are the tools of the emotionally underdeveloped, the insecure, and the afraid. They are the desperate tactics of people who lack the self-awareness, honesty, or courage to navigate life with authenticity. When someone tries to undermine your reputation, distort your words, or play games with your emotions, what they're really saying is, I don't believe I can win, honestly. They may dress it up in righteousness or claim they're just reacting to your behavior, but at the core, their actions stem from fear. Fear of being exposed, rejected, irrelevant, or powerless. Their attacks are not rooted in truth or strength. They're rooted in fragility and ego. The hardest part is that when you're the target of these tactics, it can be deeply painful and disorienting, especially when others believe their lies or when they twist the truth so convincingly that even you start to question your own experience. This is the insidious nature of their behavior. It's designed to humiliate and destabilize, but again, their choices reflect them, not you. Your job is not to carry their shame. It's not your burden to bear that someone else chose dishonesty over accountability, cruelty over communication, or manipulation over maturity. Their actions do not diminish your truth, your integrity, or your strength. In fact, the more unhinged and malicious their tactics become, the more it reveals about how threatened they are by your autonomy. You are not the problem. They just can't control you anymore, and that terrifies them. Recognizing this doesn't necessarily make the pain go away, but it reframes it. Instead of internalizing their behavior as a statement about your worth, you begin to see it for what it truly is, a tantrum disguised as strategy, a broken mirror aimed at you to distract from the fact that they cannot stand the reflection of their own inadequacy. So no matter how elaborate their lies, how personal their attacks, or how cruel their games, you must remember their behavior is not your shame, it's their exposure. And while they may try to stain your name, they only reveal their own weakness in the process. In the end, the tactics manipulators use, their dirty tricks, their lies and smears, are all driven by one thing: fear. Fear that they can't control you, fear that their power over you will slip away. But here's the truth: their manipulation doesn't define you. It reflects their inability to be authentic, their insecurity, and their desperation. The more they resort to underhanded tactics, the more they expose their own weaknesses. You don't need to shrink, doubt yourself, or carry the burden of their shame. You are strong because you know who you are, because you value your integrity, and because you refuse to let anyone dictate your worth. The path to freedom is not without its challenges, but it is clear when you stop allowing manipulators to influence you, you make room for the real, the genuine, and the powerful connections that truly matter. Never forget that when someone's dirty tricks can no longer manipulate you, it isn't your failure, it's theirs. And in that moment, you've not only reclaimed your power, but also taken the first step toward a life where your voice, your values, and your authenticity reign supreme. Stand firm, stay true to yourself, and know that the manipulator's schemes are just that, schemes. They will falter and you will rise.